Hello, everyone. Welcome back. It is November 30th, 2025. It's a Sunday evening, and I'm here recording a tag video. I think this may be my first tag video ever, even though I've been making YouTube videos, Booktube adjacent videos for 4 or 5 years, but I was never tagged before. And this time I was tagged by Grant Shipway, who has a great channel called Grant Loves Books. Grant Loves Books. I leave a link to his channel. Please go check it out. He makes great videos. If I were to recommend one video to begin viewing Grant's channel, Grant's works, I would recommend looking at his review of The Stone Angel by Margaret Lawrence. Okay, so thank you, Grant. Tag videos. Are there people in my audience who may not know what a tag video is? Okay, so anybody can create a tag video, the original creator. You put together a list of questions. You answer the questions yourself, and then you tag a bunch of other YouTubers or booktubers. Booktubers, another footnote to the footnote. Booktubers are people who make YouTube videos about books. And there are conventional types of videos like TBRs, things to be read, planned readings. There are wrap-ups. There are reflections, monthly, yearly reflections. There are reviews, praises of good books, objections and complaints about bad books. And I've done things like that myself. There are lists, like my top 10 favorites in this year, my planned reads for next year, and so on and so forth. Okay, one type of video in Booktube is tag videos, and you create and you get tagged, you tag other people, and this is what I think may be unnecessary explanation of what I'm doing now, but for those few who don't know the Booktube culture, tagging and tag videos is something we do. Okay, this tag is called The Random Ruminations of a Booktuber. It's developed by KD Books. KD Books himself has a video. I leave a link to his channel too. The second person who I think did that video, at least in this network that ends up here with me, was Alyssa. Alyssa, aka Nerdy Nurse Reads. That's the name of the channel. And then Alyssa tagged Grant, I believe, and so that means I am two degrees separated by 2 degrees from the original creator of the tag, which is cool, very cool. Let's get to the questions. Questions are very interesting, and I'm gonna tag 2 people at the end, and anybody else who watches this video, feel free to consider yourself tagged. I'm gonna tag Mike. His channel is called Mike G's Eclectic Reads, and I'm gonna tag my friend Javier Rivera, who has been away from YouTube for a long time. So I hope this motivates him to return. All right, I'm tagging them because I would love to read their answers to these questions too. Question number 1 is, do you feel obliged to read? I don't feel externally obliged to read. I read in my spare time right now. I mean, most of my reading is in my spare time, setting aside the reading that I do for work. There's some reading that I do for work, but it's a different kind of reading. It's not immersive. I feel internally obliged to read because reading, like some other things, like listening to music, like looking at art, looking at paintings, classical paintings, looking at good architecture, looking at good films, having good conversations, having meaningful, good, in-depth conversations. These are things that, especially music, these are things that for me, and I think for many of us, they help us get in touch with that side of ourselves that we value. Maybe we value the most, or we value most profoundly. It's not a side of myself. It's a side of life. It's a side of being human. So I feel obligated to touch base with that side, to get back in touch on a regular basis because I don't want to forget that. It's something that is not just a good feeling, it's a feeling of participation, it's a feeling of belonging, it's a feeling of friendship, it's a feeling of a journey that is shared, a history that is shared. Looking at the book on my desk right now, this wonderful, beautifully written book, The Inwardness of Things, Joseph Conrad and the Voice of Poetry. This book is by Debra, Romanick, Baldwin. It's just it's so great. So as an example, I'm reading this book from the beginning. It's giving me the ability to get back in touch with that thing, whatever that thing is. It's difficult to name, to describe, but there is a thing. We want to be in touch with it. And reading, music, art, taking a walk sometimes, architecture, again, those things, they reconnect us. Do you feel obliged to make content? Not anymore. So I started the channel a few years ago. In that moment when I started, those days, those early days, I was motivated to share what I was thinking about, to connect, to reach out, to connect, to have my YouTube channel to be a place where people find certain things, a way of treating texts, books, a way of preferring things. And after a while, it's like gardening. You want to keep the thing that you're working on alive. You want to keep it going. You want to keep the momentum. So after some time, I felt obligated to keep making content in order to show my commitment to my audience, to people who are paying attention, to keep giving them a reason to come back, to keep the conversation going too. But I'm at a point where I don't feel obliged to create content, but I do feel occasionally motivated. Not always, but sometimes I'm motivated, and some of those times that I'm motivated to record a video, I have energy, I have time. So there's an overlap, a Venn diagram. Motivated, have time, have energy, not occupied with other commitments. Life is not in the way. And I sit and record a video. And being a content creator for me now means having faith that I will, in the future, will be motivated again. I don't need to be motivated right now, but someday, maybe next week, next month, I will read something, and that thing, like Walter Benjamin says, there's a kind of text that wants to be translated, wants to be taken and put into this medium. And YouTubing is a translation in my mind, bringing things to discussion in a new medium. There are certain types of books in my mind, in my psyche, that when I read them, the book itself wants to come and be mentioned, be discussed, be reviewed in positive or negative way. I guess it's my mind that wants to do that. Do you feel obliged, continuing the first, it's a three-part question, the first one. So the last part is, do you feel obliged to read certain books? No. No, not really. I'm still thinking if that answer is fair. I mean, I read widely. I try to keep up a little bit with the thing that I have a background in, which is psychology. I have a PhD in cognitive psychology. Like if somebody writes an article or a book that has mentioned my book, my 2019 book, Experimental Psychology and Human Agency, I have a Google Scholar alert on that because I'm curious. I'm curious to see who is discussing that, and a few other contributions of mine. So is that an obligation to read certain types of books? When it comes to YouTube, there are books that I have discussed, and they have gathered views at an unusually higher more than, I've received more views on them, more watch time, more likes, all those metrics. And sometimes I feel like maybe I should keep reading those books. Like one example is Byung-Chul Han. Scent of Time is one of the books that I've discussed already. That video has been watched, I think, above average, significantly above average. There's a few other books by Byung-Chul Han that I've discussed. And should I keep reading and discussing all of his works? I don't feel motivated to do that because I need the book that I'm reading, and especially books that I'm discussing, to challenge, to offer a challenge to me. There should be some friction. And that friction creates heat, creates sparks, and quote-unquote fire. And that fire can show up in discussions with friends, or it could show up in a video. Other than that, so yeah, I feel, if anything, I feel sometimes I feel like, oh, I don't feel obliged to read more books by Byung-Chul Han, despite the fact that they are being well received, or by books by Haruki Murakami. I love Haruki Murakami fans, people who have watched and commented on my videos. They're just so positive, so wonderful, so encouraging, and their appreciation comes from such a great place. And it seems like they're great readers, very curious, very open-minded. But I'm not a fan of Haruki Murakami in the same way. It's so interesting that I like his fans, but not himself as much. His writing, I think, is not, maybe it's the translation, but it doesn't move me as much. Okay. Finally, we are moving to question number 2. Numbers aren't everything. Agree, disagree. Agree, of course, agree. The numbers aren't everything because they don't capture everything. They capture some things, but they don't capture everything. I have some videos that haven't been viewed that many times, but I've made friends because of them. So that's meaningful. Where is that? When I'm looking at the numbers, I don't see that. That's not, there's no trace of that, but my life has changed. So yes, numbers are not everything. Numbers are, I like this phrase, vanity metric. There are vanity metrics. There are numbers that are significant, they're meaningful, like the number of people who sign up in my Saturday reading group. I have a reading group that is organized through my Patreon, through Zoom. We meet online. It's a diverse group of people from different countries, mainly from English-speaking countries, but the US, Canada here. One other person who occasionally joins us from Canada, from the UK. And the number of people in that group, I mean, that's one change in that number makes a big difference to everybody's experience. But that one, if there's like a video, number of views on a video that go from 100 to 101, I mean, that's significant, but I don't see that significance. One viewer can be very significant, but it's like not always reflected in places that we feel. So for their own sake, numbers are not important, but they're important for other reasons, usually. Number 3, question number 3. Do you feel pigeonholed? Do I feel pigeonholed? I don't feel pigeonholed. I feel like maybe I am by some people, but my videos on my YouTube channel are so diverse. They cover such a wide range. Unfortunately, it's very bad for your brand if you do that, but I can't help but do that. This is the only way I can be engaged with this medium, and I'm doing it this way. So I'm sorry for people who pigeonhole me and then get frustrated because I don't live up to that, the expectations of the pigeonhole. But that's the pigeonhole. It's not me. Can I say anything else on that idea? I mean, it's okay to be frustrated. I usually tell people, just wait, I'll get back to that. I'll get back to that topic. Thank you for liking that video that I made, but I'll get back to that. Like Northrop Frye. I've one book review, one review of one of his books, but I've not reviewed any of his major works, like The Great Code or The Anatomy of Criticism. I'll get to that. That's the thing I say. Byung-Chul Han, Vita Contemplativa. I'll get to it. When, I don't know. Okay. The next part of that question, the pigeonhole question, is: do you feel you need to make content on certain things? I feel like maybe some people think I need to do that, but no, I don't feel it at a personal level. And maybe that's a failure on my part, but I don't. Again, I follow that sense of challenge. I want to have fun. It's my leisure time that I'm devoting to my to reading something. So I wanted to have some kind of magic. I want to feel a kind of chemistry with the book that I'm reading. And yes, I can't be regimented too much. Question number 4. Are you reading for the algorithm? This is a great question. Thank you, Katie Books, for including this. And when somebody says this is a great question, it's usually for self-serving reasons, like they have a prepared answer to it, or sometimes people say it's a great question because they want to buy some time. So it's that phrase is tricky, but I really do believe it's a great question because it's the algorithm is that mysterious part of our experience. Is one of the mysterious parts of our experience, and we respond to it. Sometimes we might do something to serve the algorithm, but the algorithm does not respond. It's kind of like prayer, the religious experience of prayer and then waiting for a response. No, my answer is no. I don't read for the algorithm, but there's a but. I do believe that sometimes we who want to have public presence on social media, YouTube, Booktube, it's a good idea for us to engage with things that are important to a wider number of people, to the public. So if you want to be in the public, so speak to issues that the public is interested in. Find that common ground. Try to find that overlap between your interests and the public's interest. I'm interested in books. I'm interested in the experience of reading. I'm interested in the types of reading experiences, kinds of things we get from books. So when I see there is a best-selling author, I get curious. Like Colleen Hoover, I was very curious about her, and I did read 2 of her books. It was not easy to get through them, but I did read them, and I did my version of, I imposed my perspective on Colleen Hoover's books, and some people appreciated those. I think it ends with us and it starts with us. Similarly, I did read and review Lessons in Chemistry, 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I expressed a lot of my own thoughts as I was critiquing and discussing those books. I don't feel like I read for the algorithm, but I did feel like I want to intervene and maybe meet some readers when they are just after their reading of, at a point that they've just read 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I'd like to kind of intersect. I'd like to make our paths cross, because I had something to say on that kind of book, and I wanted to share that. I don't believe in types of readers as much. Yes, there are, I guess, types of readers, but there are also, the thing that I believe in more strongly is the types of reading trajectory. I have a reading trajectory. That means I have started with these books, and then I've continued, and I've jumped through this genre, that genre. I've read for this purpose and that purpose. So there's a path. You have a path, a reading trajectory. And sometimes when trajectories cross, they touch, there's an encounter with another kind of reader, that can make an impact on me and on the other person. So that's part of public participation, participating in a public forum, sharing our perspective. It doesn't mean when I'm talking about Colleen Hoover that I become a Colleen Hoover fan or a Colleen Hoover hater. I still present myself, my perspective, my way of reading and thinking through. And if you watch that video, I do say a few good things about Colleen Hoover, even Colleen Hoover. And so that's my response to the question. Reading trajectories, the public addressing other people's interests and meeting other people based on their interests, addressing other people, like Haruki Murakami readers. I've loved my interaction with them. Number 5 and last question: what's the worst part of content creation for books? I'm not sure. Well, let's remove for books. The worst part of content creation is that, like anything, like any other activity, you get good at it over time. The more you do it, you get better at it. But you have those recorded videos in the past that are now, if you watch them, you cringe. They're dreadful. They're very bad. So that's one of them. But their solution, easy solution to that, is never watching your own video after you edit them and you upload them. But if you do watch them, in retrospect, they're usually, I don't enjoy watching my own videos, especially videos that I've done a while ago. The other thing related to that is the fact of aging, the passage of time. Social media makes you aware of that. Not just the fact that I have like way more white hair on my head, on my face. And it's not just that. It's just also relative stages of maturity. There are certain moments where in the past I've said things a bit rushed, a bit prematurely. And even now I'm recording a video these days, these weeks, these months. I make a lot of mistakes. I continue to make mistakes. I continue to rush to judgment. And I might be reminded of these things later on by others or by myself. So these are, you go on the record. In other words, the worst part of content creation for books is that you go on the record and you say something that you may not be very happy with. I won't say regret, but you may not be happy with or content with. Okay. All right. Again, thank you, Katie Books. Thank you, Alyssa, aka Nerdy Nurse Reads. Thank you, Grant Loves Books. Grant. Mike Javier, I hope you do these questions, respond to these questions. I'd love to hear from you. It's a nice way to warm up and get back to recording stuff. Oh, yeah. So it's a great time to join my weekly reading group or study group or book club. Because it's a good time because we are starting a new book. We are starting a book by Dufourmantelle called Power of Gentleness, Meditations on the Risk of Living. If you have questions about that, feel free to ask. And if you are curious about how these meetings are conducted, many of them are recorded and they are available, group discussions. They're available on Patreon. So you can just register on the first tier, sample one of our discussions. The most recent discussions have been on Nietzsche, The Twilight of the Idols. Otherwise, if you have questions, because they are public, they are not public, they are group discussions. I don't share those with the public, but they are available through Patreon. That's it. Thank you very much for your attention, and I'll speak with you in future videos.